Welcome to Queers Quills, the official podcast. I'm audiobook narrator Kirt Graves. Every episode, I invite an attending author or narrator to join me for a one-on-one conversation about their lives and their art, so attendees and readers from across the world can get to know them not only as professionals, but as people. Joining me today is Laura Piper Lee. Laura Piper Lee has always wanted to be an author. Well, at first she wanted to be a mermaid, but that didn't work out. She enjoys flirting, laughing, and swooning, which makes writing romantic comedies the perfect career for her. Her debut, Hannah Tate Beyond Repair, was named one of the best romances of 2024 by Elle magazine, and her sapphic rom-com, Zoe Brennan, First Crush, was named one of the most bingeable romances of February by Oprah's Book Club. Welcome to the podcast, Laura.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for spending some time with me today. So, first and foremost, I would love to hear more about how you became a published author. What was your author origin story?
Well, like many authors, I started off being a very sad lawyer. Old
rag.
There's so many lawyers that write novels. We are especially romance.
Yeah.
I find it I keep meeting more and more of us, and we're all like, wow, it's so much better writing romance, right? And so I think that we get tired of that kind of drama and maybe we move over to romantic drama. But I think it all started when I was in law school. So even before I was a practicing sad lawyer, I started doing these long hikes every morning, and I just got that first book idea, and I had written a lot when I was a kid, but I hadn't taken it seriously as an adult. And I just couldn't stop thinking about that book idea. And so I just kept thinking and thinking. And I think it took me about a year of thinking, and then I started drafting it. And I've been writing ever since. And ironically, that was for a middle grade fantasy novel.
Wow.
And so I actually, for many years, I only wrote middle grade science fiction and fantasy novels. And that's actually what I got my literary agent for. And I had several of them get pretty close to being published. Like I'd gotten to acquisitions, which is the moment when the publisher is deciding whether or not to give you an offer. And then the sales team comes in and says, that's not marketable. Don't give her one. And that happened to me a lot.
Boo, sales teams.
Sales. I mean, they used to sell books. I think that they would have sold. And so after the last middle grade fantasy I'd written, which was they're all comedies too. Everything I write's a comedy. And the last one was called Evil Baby Wizards, to give you an idea of the kind of stuff I wrote. And it went to acquisitions 4 times.
Oh my gosh.
And, yeah, it did not make it. And so
they don't think a book titled Evil Baby Wizards would sell?
I know. Well, to be fair,
have these people met human beings?
It had a very outrageous magic system that you don't discover until the midpoint in this like very big expose scene. And I think that's what nailed like the coffin every time was that. Like I knew it was controversial and I convinced my agent to let me do it. And she was right. I should have taken it out. But regardless, after the last time I went to acquisitions and didn't pass, she was like, you know what, Laura, I just feel like you've got to do something different. Like you're going to go crazy. I think you have the right voice for an adult rom-com. I think you should write. I think you should try your hand at it. And I remembered thinking like, I have not ever had an idea for an adult novel, let alone a romance, ever. I only think in silly middle grade, plots and all fantasy, never contemporary or anything. And I was like, yeah, sure, Carrie, that's my agent. Sure, Carrie, I'll let you know. And then that night, I actually dreamt up the plot of Hannah Tate Beyond Repair. Like it came to me in a dream. And I got up and I wrote it down. And the next morning I looked at it and I was like, wow, it's not batshit like all my other crazy ideas I write in the middle of the night. And so I pitched it to my agent the next morning and she's like, yeah, write that. So I did. And I had a book deal like 6 weeks later.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was like one of those things where the universe was like, oh my God, we're so sick of her trying. Just like, let's give her the win, and pushed me into this career. So I like to say that I had my own major plot twist because I sold that romance on proposal, which means it wasn't even fully written. And so I sold a romance without ever having written a sex scene. I wasn't sure I could do it, though I thought I had the chops. Turns out I do. But I didn't
Congratulations.
know that. Thank you. We all have our talents.
Yep.
So, and I just aged my sense of humor up just slightly, for the rom-coms for adults. So that is actually how I started writing romance, and how I got published. It's just a real, like when they say that so much of this industry is based on luck
Yeah.
and being in the right place and having a good agent who tells you what to do and is always right. It's always right. It's really annoying half the time, but she's always right. Then and that's how it happened for me.
Yeah. Well, it's all of those things, but it's also, it takes listening to what the universe is trying to tell you. And so that was also an important element, because I know a lot of people who, if they were being pushed into something they did not think was for them, subconsciously or not, like their brain would not provide them the plot of a
That's
book.
true.
And like your brain was like, yeah, heard, I'm going to do this in your sleep.
Yeah, it
You
was
know?
very like, we
Yeah.
want to be published. And now I'm doing this, and all my ideas are romance. And it's funny because my agent still wants me to revise Evil Baby Wizards, take out the crazy magic system to sell it, one day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so one track minded. Like, I'm just on romance now. You've created a monster. This is who I am. And so maybe one day I'll do both, but for now it's just romance. But you're right. I do actually believe that wholeheartedly. Like, you have to be open to the universe, and just have that open heart and mind. And then opportunities do come to you. And it really, that totally is what happened for me.
Yeah. I love that. And then your second book was a sapphic romance. So what made you want to shift that direction and include queer characters? And actually, I apologize, because I shouldn't assume that the first book, that neither of them was queer. Totally possible as well.
Yeah. So the main character is bisexual, and Hannah Tate. She's bi, and she does end up in a male-female, like hetero presenting relationship. Her whole friend group, they're all queer. And the funny thing is that in part, the reason why I decided to write Zoe is because one, my publisher wanted a second book in that universe, and I didn't see that coming. I thought Hannah would be a standalone. But two, I had a hard time writing a male love interest. Like, and I consider myself pansexual. I think that there are certain proclivities within that are easier and more natural for me. And I did find it hard writing a male love interest. I mean, I can distinctly remember trying to like decide. I'm like, well, he's supposed to be hot, right? Like, gotta write a hot guy. I'm like, well, he's got shoulders. They're strong. Yeah, I mean, I like really had to sit with shoulders for a while. And so then I was like, I don't want to have to like work so hard at that. And that is why, like, a lot of people are like, oh, Zoe is so much steamier and so much more,
Mhm.
so much more of a romance that way. Because Hannah's kind of straddles the line of women's fiction and a rom-com. And it definitely has steamy scenes as well, but it's a little bit, I would say it's on that line. Whereas Zoe is like a true blue romance. And I think it was just because that's what comes more naturally to me to describe. It was so much easier to write that stuff in Zoe. And it's funny because I've got some more male-female books that'll be coming out. And I'm like, got to find something other than the shoulders to talk about this time.
The shoulders. They have elbows. They have
there's not enough love
necks
about
and,
the elbow.
yeah, wrists. Wrists can be hot depending on the guy,
Yeah.
I have some ideas for you if you need what body parts on a
Let's
guy
get
can
an
be hot.
anatomy chart.
Yeah.
You can just go through.
Yeah, circles, Xing things out, like never this. And if I hear one more thing about an Adonis belt, I'm going to lose my mind. We get it. It's sexy. But yeah, well, now I've totally lost track of where I was going. I will say I would like to someday read Evil Baby Wizards. So if your brain will let you go back there. Also, are you sure your agent doesn't have like a speaker in your bedroom and she's like quietly whispering things to you in the middle of the night?
I wouldn't put it past her. She's very good at her job.
Yeah.
I do implicitly trust her, which is hard for me. Again, I'm an attorney as a day job. I don't trust anybody, but I do trust my agent. And I do think that there's been some subliminal messaging over the years about what I'm good at. And here I am with book deals aplenty, and she's making the money now. So she was right.
That's great. That's great. I would love to talk to you about some of your literary influences, because this is pulling back the curtain a little bit for the listeners, but I do ask you guys these questions in advance so I get to see a little bit of your answers, and we actually have one in common.
Oh, yeah?
So, but I don't want to prompt you. So What are some of your literary influences?
Just in general? Oh, okay. So I totally don't remember what I said.
This is this is
So
perfect.
you'll have to
I will prompt you
remind
if I
me.
need to,
Okay.
but I'm curious if it'll come up now.
Yeah, I don't know. So in romance, I have certain influences for sure. I would say in romance, well, now my brain is just working on what I'm like, what did I say before? I don't know.
They're
I
not
think that,
romance authors, the two that you, well, I guess one of
oh,
them
okay.
is sort of like a YA romance, but
Mm.
they get there. I suppose there are
The
some
intrigue
romances in
builds.
here.
I still don't.
Yes.
I mean, my memory is like the older I get, the
I
worse it
can't wait
gets.
to hear about what I was influenced by.
And you'll tell me, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, they are. I
Yeah.
totally love them. Yeah. Well, so I consume a lot of fantasy,
Hmm.
and not what I think of as angsty, romantasy fantasy. I like to laugh. But when I'm reading fantasy, I either like want it to be like funny and cozy fantasy, or I want literary leaning fantasy.
Sure.
I have not really dived deeply into the angsty, sexy, romantasy world. And it's mostly just because they're so serious, and I'm a deeply unserious person. So I sometimes have a hard time. I'm like, oh, there's another knife against someone's throat.
Yeah.
I want to laugh. And so, like, for example, one of my favorite cozy fantasies is Legends and Lattes.
Hmm.
Love that book because it's just heartwarming, and that's a really big theme in all of my books. My books really bring the heartwarming aspects to them. Like they're funny, and they might be sad at times, but like the most like I'm gonna make you go, that's like a big part of what I like to write and what I love to read. And I think Travis Baldree, the author, does an amazing job at cozy fantasy and that heartwarming element. Um, I also really love in romance. I really love this is almost basic of an answer nowadays, but I think Ali Hazelwood influenced me quite a lot
Sure.
because it was the first time I thought somebody was being like very silly. Like in a big tradition, like in a big, like commercially published, like silly in the way I'm silly. And
Uh-huh.
I really appreciated that and be very hot. And also kind of like smart girl gone chaotic, which is my personal, inclinations as well. And so I really identified with that. But like my favorite all-time book was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. I probably read that every
Ding, ding,
year, and
ding.
that was it.
That was it.
I've I've read everything by Madeline L'Engle, and some of it gets real weird. And
Super
I
weird.
respect the hell out of it, But yes, A Wrinkle in Time was the book that I read when I was little and was just like, this blew my mind. And it's still my comfort read. I read it whenever I'm having kind of a bad day because you can read it so quickly. It's a short novel, and but I love Madeline L'Engle.
Yeah.
Definitely my favorite.
Yeah. I don't have it in this room, but I have a book poster from when they used to do that for the third book in that series, A Swiftly Tilting Planet. I found it in a thrift shop in Kansas City and like took it home and got it framed. And like, so it's in my office. It's just in a different room. And I like, Madeline L'Engle is the author that influenced me the most as a kid. And I felt very alone in that because nobody in my immediate vicinity was like, yes, Madeline L'Engle,
Same.
complex
Nobody knew her but me.
characters and science and religion and like really dealing with things. And then
Yeah.
it goes to some strange places. Like there are times when I've been like, did I have a fever dream and imagine that this was the plot of a book? No. No,
Nope,
that
that's
really did
Madeline
happen.
L'Engle.
Yep,
Have you ever read Daniel Lavery?
I
They used to
haven't.
go by Mallory Ortberg, and they were one of the co-founders of the Toast. One of the funniest humorists, queer trans humorists of all time. I mean, just funny humorist of all time. And they transitioned, and they wrote a hysterical newsletter about many waters,
Yep.
which is one of the weirdest books, right? That's when the
So
twins go
fucking
back
weird.
to Bible times, and I think they
And
like
there's
kind
like
of, there's like sex
angels
with the
and
angels. Yeah.
giants and yeah, and they're like, yeah, they're having sex. It's weird.
And I remember, I'll never forget, they get dirty and they scrub all their skin off with sand. Like that really imprinted on my young brain. Well, they were Mallory Ortberg at the time, I believe, but they wrote the funniest freaking send up of that book because they loved Madeline L'Engle too. And that was the first person. And I read everything they write, like everything, because they're so funny. Um, One of the best pieces, also, just side note, that they ever wrote was like a detailed reaction to what The Rock eats the entire day. It is so funny, Kurt. I'm gonna send it to you after this. It
I
is
can't
one of
wait.
the funniest pieces of writing of all time. Anyway, Swiftly Tilt or no, Many Waters, and I had to write to him and be like, I thought I was the only person in America who experienced this book. Like, I can't believe somebody else knows about the twins. And we bonded over the weird sand bath. I mean, it was just so strange. I loved it.
I remember that book so vivid. I remember where I was when I got to the tent sex like part, because like I was babysitting and I was in these people's home and I was like, should I be reading this while children are sleeping in the next room? Like, and yet still I was like, did I make that up? That's such a weird thing to have in a book.
I Madeline Ling with you all day, but I just have to say this too. That wasn't even her weirdest series. Like the Ring of
Right.
Endless Light series, you know, I still don't know what happened. I read them, don't know what happened, but I liked it. But I loved
Yeah.
the Wrinkle in Time universe best. Like that was my favorite.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah.
And A Wind in the Door, when they go inside his mitochondria, like I really understand mitochondria because of that book.
Exactly. And is it any wonder that all of our friends weren't also reading Madeline L'Engle? So I'm so glad I've grown up and found myself at a place where I am interacting with people who know her and her writing. And you were the second author I've talked to for this podcast who brought her up. So like, I really feel great. I'm like, this is going to be so much fun. So other people who are right where I am, or at least was at a certain point in my life. So back to you and your writing and your work. I am interested to know if you have between the two, if you have a one that you would recommend to people who are coming, or if you would say somebody coming to my work for the first time, like I have one coming up, a book that you might like to recommend more than the two that are currently out.
I think that it depends on what my readers are looking for because so Hannah Tate Beyond Repair, it's my debut. She's bisexual. She's a single mom and she has a little 3-month-old baby. And I think of it a lot as like this whole book, every single character has mommy issues. So that's my mommy issues book. And her mommy issues, she's like trying to figure out how to be a mom when
Right.
she herself had sort of a negative relationship with her own, who's trying to be a better grandmother for the baby. And so I think that like if you want to think deep thoughts about motherhood, and what it means, and also like queer motherhood is a big theme in the book, and just all of that. Then, and you're okay with a lot of that character journey because you know, like some people pick this up and they're like, oh, it's she's fixing up a cabin and it's a carpenter, and I'm like, well, yeah, there's that, and yeah, they do it. It's fun. I worked on it. It's fun. But there's also just like a ton of about that motherhood journey for her. It's like a motherhood coming of age story. So I think if you're not really into that, then you don't need to read it necessarily. Although I have to say, so I got a lot of new readers because of Zoe being a sapphic rom-com. Um, and they went back and read Hannah. Like a lot of the people who read Zoe first have gone back to read Hannah because they wanted to see Hannah's story. And Zoe does appear in that book too. And so I would say if you want that single mom motherhood journey, and a male-female relationship, with a big queer friend group though, Hannah is a good place to begin. It's very family, like coming together, a family reuniting. Whereas Zoe, I think, is like my true blue, real deal rom-com. Like the romance is just the central conflict. And it's so much fun because Zoe is like, she runs her family vineyard, and she ends up hiring, well, she doesn't. Her father ends up hiring Zoe's first crush in her queer awakening, to come be the vintner while he's going to leave the country for a while. And her first crush is unfortunately been out in Napa for a long time and has come back this huge asshole, the big chip on her shoulder. She's it's a femme mag
Listen,
pairing.
assholes deserve love
So much
too.
fun. She does. She does. And she's so hot. And she really brings it in the romance department. Like, so they have like kind of oh no, I had this huge crush on you and now you're here. And then they accidentally sleep together, which, will be explained if you read the book. And then she realizes that her father's hired her and now they have to work together and now she sucks. And then they fall in love anyway. And I think that that's I mean, like the whole idea of the book, I wanted to examine power dynamics because like, when your first crush, you're really never normal around them for the rest of your life. Like you could see your first crush and still like kind of be transported back to that
Mm,
feeling of like, like that teen, like, oh my God, I don't know how to act around them. And so I wanted to put Zoe, who's like this boss bitch of her own vineyard, in that position where suddenly the person who has to make her wine is this person she's never been able to like be herself around or stand up
yeah.
to. And it was just really fun. And the power play makes for a really hot dynamic. So I know I've been rambling, but the idea is
No, I
like if
love
you want
that.
like a really hot, steamy, uh, butch femme dynamic where they butt heads like constantly until they don't anymore, and it's really hot. Then I would say Zoe. So I think for in my understanding of like Queers and Quills, I would think that like Zoe's probably the book that people would enjoy most.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
like
it
I said, a
sounds like
true
you can
blue
read them
romance that
in
way.
either order. So,
You can,
you know,
absolutely.
when you love it, go read the other one. I love that
Yes.
you were told to write a rom-com and you thought, I know, mommy issues. I'll explore the relationship of becoming a mother when you struggled with your own mother.
Yes. And the funny thing is, I thought I got it out of my system. And then I was reading a review of Zoe and the reviewer, I don't know who it was, some reviewer on Goodreads or something was like, oh, I really enjoyed like the very nuanced portrayal of her childhood neglect from her father. And I was like, oh, I did it
Oh
again. I'm still
no.
working through it. Oops.
I love it.
So yeah, family issues.
Yeah. Well, don't we all have them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the people who don't think they do, they're there. They're under the surface. So, all right. I have also invited you here to play a game. Are you ready for that?
Sure.
Okay, so the rules of the game are simple. I have a deck of cards, and on each card is a question. The questions aim to learn more about you as a person. So some are biographical, some are hypothetical, some are just plain silly. But I will not be picking which questions you're going to answer. Fate will do that for us. I'm going to deal 3 cards every round, and you choose one. Whatever card you pick, you are agreeing to answer, with a couple of exceptions. So, if a question comes along that you don't want to answer, you have 2 opportunities to switch things up. You can turn the tables on me one time, forcing me to answer the question, or you can also discard a personal question in favor of answering a bookish question from the white deck. But you must then answer whatever question gets dealt, and you're only dealt 1 card. Ready to play?
Okay.
I'm making
Yeah.
that sound so much more ominous than it is.
I know. It's exciting.
All right, here we go. Card 1, card 2, or card 3?
Gonna go with 2.
If you had to teach a class on one thing, what would you teach?
Comedy. I love all things funny. I love writing comedy. I love watching comedy, reading comedy. Like I have a lot to say about humor and what makes things funny.
Uh-huh.
I think that would be so much fun. Like what a cool way to spend your life. It's like just thinking about things that make people laugh. I think of like my principle in life is I want to make people feel good and make them laugh. And, uh, and I think it's a really noble pursuit. And so I would love to like investigate that as a class. That would be so much fun.
That'd be great. Are you also a fan of stand-up comedy?
I am.
Are you a fan of
I am.
shows about stand-up comedy?
Yes. Oh, do you watch Hacks by
I
chance?
love Hacks. And I also just
I do
started
too.
rewatching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel because I was like, I miss having more female comedians to have in my repertoire of TV watching. So,
I loved I'm Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I kind of fell off a little bit toward the end. Those early seasons were so good.
yeah.
And I have not watched the latest season of Hacks yet, but I have a huge crush on Hannah Einbinder. I think it's Einbinder, but Hannah, call me if
Yeah.
you're watching this.
I mean, who doesn't? She appeals to all sectors.
She's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
I love it. And so, I mean, I'm forgetting right now, what's the main lady's name? Something.
Jean Smart.
Oh, Jean Smart.
Hmm.
That's it. They're just. I mean, that show couldn't be better cast. It is so
No.
good. I don't think it could
And
work with two other people, really.
no, no. Well, certainly not as well. And like comedy is hard. Having to pre-script and deliver comedy as though it is like off the cuff is even harder. And like I don't think it always succeeds because I think it is just that hard that even brilliant people, like, it's hard to pull off the I'm a comedian in front of an audience and we haven't done this take 20 times. But it succeeds far more often than other shows I've seen that try to include stand-up comedy. So I think it's really successful and smart, and I love the relationship between those two.
To give a shout out to a fellow rom-com author who she was a stand-up comedian before she started writing rom-coms. Her name is Betty Corello, and she was a stand-up comedian here in, like, I live in Philly. She lives up in Philly, and her books are very funny, as you would imagine, but also like super sad and angsty in a good way. But gotta give it up for, like, I was like, that's so cool. Like I said, most of us are lawyers that come into this career, but we got a stand-up comedian. That like instantly makes us cooler.
I love that. I love that. All right. Card 1, card 2, or card 3?
This time I'll go with 3.
Would you ever pick up a hitchhiker?
Oh, that's hard because I'm really anxious. Maybe if I think I'd be terrified, but it would have to be like a very pathetic child or like somebody that,
Yes,
like,
yes.
and then I would just be like half convinced they were like the devil incarnate or something the whole time anyway. I'd be like waiting for the child to kill me, but I would still feel compelled to help the child. So
Yeah.
I think, like, depending on how pathetic the person was and a child, I really do think it would have to be like the saddest little so-and-so, on the side of the road. I don't think I could like pick up like a real deal hitchhiker. And I'm always amazed at like the 1960s and 70s stories when they've just got that casually in there. And I'm like, nah, couldn't do it.
Different times. And it is stranger to be hitchhiking now because there are so many modes of transportation that don't require you owning your own vehicle and can be accessed by the computer in your pocket.
Yeah.
That generally people have, whether they, like, even people who are unhoused usually have phones because you cannot live without them. So that person's making an intentional choice to be hitchhiking rather than finding other modes of transportation. And that's where I say, why this? Now, if they were carrying recording equipment, I'd be like, they're making a podcast. Let's get on this podcast.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe if it was like a film crew, I'd feel better about it.
Yeah.
I lived in Russia for like a hot minute for school, and they're hitchhiking. Everybody does it, but it's for money. So you flag a car down, and you're like, and then you sit there and you like barter in Russian, which I was not. I mean, I was learning Russian at the time. So I was not very good at negotiating, to say the least. But you would get in a stranger's car, with your friends after you like negotiate how many rubles you're going to pay them to go wherever. So I looking back on that, that was crazy. But that was something everybody did there. I guess in some ways it was like a pre-Uber situation.
Right, exactly.
That had going on in Russia. Yeah. I think I sometimes I look back and I'm like, I cannot believe I got into so many random people's cars in a foreign country like Russia.
But if it's what everybody's doing, then it seems normal,
I had all my friends with me. They'd have died with me, so at least it wouldn't have been as lonely.
Plus, that's more work. Like when there's multiple bodies to have to take out, because you have to do it fast, because otherwise one of them can run away and call for help. So yeah, more people is definitely always good. All right, card 1, card 2, or card 3?
Card 1.
If you got to pick a new name for yourself, what would you pick?
I'm going to go with the first thing I thought of. I would like the name Chloe. I've always thought it was really pretty. And I'm one of those people that I like how I want it to sound good, of course, but I also really like to look at it. And I just think Chloe is written in a really beautiful, surprising way. I would even have the little dots. Like I'd go full on Chloe, and I would enjoy it.
Chloe. I love it. All right, card 1, card 2, or card 3?
Back to 2.
All right. What's the strangest skeleton you ever discovered in someone's closet? And I assume they
Oh.
mean metaphorical, but if you have literal, feel free to share.
Mm. I don't know if I'd call this a skeleton per se, but I had this friend growing up, and he would often talk about his childhood acting career. And I was like, what were you even in? And he would be like, well, I was in a lot of movies, and he like wouldn't really say.
Right.
And then I did find out that that his biggest role was in a Hulk Hogan movie, where he played the son of a friend of Hulk Hogan's, and I think the son, his role, gets kidnapped, and Hulk Hogan has to go save him. And he only had one line, which was Huracan, because that was the name of Hulk Hogan's ship, like his speedboat, the Hurricane. And my friend, he didn't have any other lines, but Hulk Hogan just carried him bodily under his armpit for the like 45 minutes of the movie. So he didn't have almost any speaking parts. Just he had to like be up in Hulk Hogan's armpit. And that was his big movie. And I was like, yeah, I see why you didn't,
You're not walking around.
He told us, we asked him a million questions about Hulk Hogan's armpit. So it did prove to be a very fun filmography.
For sure.
I'd say that was one of the strangest. But I have to, can I break the rules a little bit and ask you, like, even though I answered it, can I ask you that question? Because I bet people have good answers to this. I just didn't think of anything super scintillating.
The first thing that came to mind for me is I grew up with 2 other families where the kids were very close in age to me. And so we were very close growing up. And literally, I mean, these people were like my second parents. We were always in each other's houses. And I found out maybe in like my late 20s, early 30s, the same time as the neighbor did, that her dad was not her dad. That he had adopted her as a baby, but her biological father was some other man that she had never met or heard about. And like this, you would never think in this family, because like they were just the nicest, sweetest people, and it was just like one of those things where like he wasn't a great guy and she left and took the baby and found somebody else, and like then they had a sister, and it's like, and like, so I think that like as far as skeletons in closets go, like seeing that family be like, oh, and by the way, and I don't remember why they finally told her. I think maybe he was not doing well or something, and it was like, we got to give her a chance to get to know him. But it was like, oh, by the way, your dad is not your dad. This other man is. And I was like, again, we were in our late 20s, early 30s by the time she's getting this information. So that's the one that came to mind for me.
Yeah, that's shocking.
Yeah, it really was.
I wish somebody would tell me that my dad wasn't my dad. God,
well,
I've been worried about him forever.
Only if the real dad is like super rich. Otherwise, I'm okay with mine. I can take.
Or just
I can
genetically superior,
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
Yeah, my parents keep having health problems. If I could find out that those weren't going to pass down, that would actually be okay too. So.
Yeah, every time something starts to break on me, and I find out that apparently my father, that was like the first sign of blank or whatever, I'm like, geez,
Same. The number of health ailments I found out my parents had because I was like, oh, you'll never believe, like this, I just found out I have this. And they're like, oh yeah, there's a history of that. Like, what?
Yeah, they don't
I was
even,
like
say
my doctor
sorry,
has to put me on blood pressure medication. They're like, oh yeah, well, your dad just had heart surgery a few weeks ago. It's like, what? Yeah. No, I didn't. And that is relevant information for the person who's carrying your genes. All right. One more question. Card 1, card 2, or card 3?
I'm going to go with 1.
All right. Have you ever accidentally texted the wrong person, and how did it turn out?
So I can't think of a time where I accidentally texted the wrong person, but I do have a story about when I wrote something and hit send, and the autocorrect really got me. Again, I am an attorney. And I represent like education clients. And so a lot of these people are very wholesome teachers, and principals and professors and all this stuff, right? And like very nice people that are very buttoned up, right? Because they're in the
At
education
least on the
profession.
outside.
Exactly. You hope that it's all the way through. Very wholesome, though. And this one particular client of mine, very wholesome guy, very nice. And it autocorrected his name to Babe. And so I just wrote, like, hey, babe, or whatever. And it's like, probably these, and you see this, like, I'm pretty much like this all the time. I just, limit my topics, but I'm pretty much always a gregarious, happy person.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so flustered. And I felt so bad. And it's been years, Kirt, and we're still not right. Like, it's still not right.
No.
Even though I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. That was an autocorrect. It was too late. It made it weird. And he was just like,
Yeah.
it was very awkward.
He
so yeah,
had
I
the
think about that.
experience, whether it was intentional or not.
Exactly.
He was
like
confronted
anyway.
with that. Yeah. Autocorrect is a menace.
It is.
It is a menace. It's not okay. And I swear it changes things after you press send.
So too. I think it's just a little troublemaker. It's an instigator. It wants to throw chaos. It's like the beginning of the AI takeover, I bet. They're just going to slowly ruin our social lives, and that'll be like the first step.
Right. Yeah, it has gotten to the point where I now proofread a text before I send it, and then I proofread it again after it's sent, because it changes things. And thank God for iPhones having edit now, so I can fix it.
No, I know. Like, you can at least declare that was not what I meant. I wish there was a way to, like, that you could truly pull things back.
Just take it back, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, now you see that because sometimes I'll say something stupid or, like, I'm like, oh, that sounded dumb, or, oh, that's not what I meant, or whatever. And then I can feel even more awkward by trying to like edit it and be like, that's not what I meant. So I'll do it. But then it's like, I wish, like, there have been times where I've sent DMs and I've immediately regretted it and been like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. And like, you can't take it back. Like,
there should be like a
10-second
undo.
Yes.
Like, it says it's sent, but it hasn't really. Okay, I bring it back. Like, for everything. Yeah, I agree.
They didn't see it yet. Why can't you let me take it back?
Yeah. So real. So real. Well, Laura, thank you for taking the time to do this. This was lovely. We got off topic in all the best ways. I really appreciate that.
I hope I get to meet you at Queers and Quills in person. You're going to be there, right?
I mean, I think we'd have to work hard not to.
Okay, good.
But yeah,
because I'm gonna review some L'Engle discography or whatever, and I'm gonna have some deep cuts conversation with you about the weirdest moments. In fact, that's the topic. The weirdest moments we can remember from Madeleine L'Engle, because I clearly need to process some of this childhood.
Yeah.
L'Engle.
I'll have to go back and review, because it's been a while since I actually read a book.
And I really am. I'm gonna send you what the Rock Eats. And if you have a liner notes, I highly encourage you to put it in the liner notes for your fans, because it's that funny.
I will.
And I'm going to also see if I can find what they wrote about the mini waters, because it was so funny.
Yeah, love that. All right, well, look for the link in the show notes, guys. It'll be there as long as I remember to do it. So, but thank you again for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for joining us for Queers and Quills, the official podcast. If you are already signed up to attend Queers and Quills, make sure to say hello to me and to Lara at the Oregon Convention Center in May. And if you're not, follow Queers and Quills on Instagram so you can see all the fun we're having this year and get updates about ticket availability in the future. Until next time, I'm Kirt Graves, and I hope you're having a very gay day. Queers and Quills, the official podcast, is produced and hosted by Kirt Graves, in coordination with Mahogany Mail and Marley Valentine. All copyrighted material is shared with permission. Music and sound effects are licensed through Storyblocks Audio. All opinions shared are those of the individuals and do not reflect the positions or policies of any company or organization with which they happen to be associated.